The fate of Yuta and Yuji is revealed. Maki throws Sukuna like a used rag mop, and Uraume tells Hikari that Sukuna has been holding back the entire time. But is that pure glazing from his or her part, or the actual truth? All this and more in JJK 252. Real quickly, throughout the chapter, there are several rough sketches that looks unfinished. A shame that Gege seems to be under immense pressure, and unfortunately for Maki fans, an ironic parallel to the other instance we've seen Gege put out some unfinished work during the Zenin Clan Massacre mini arc. I'm a little concerned whether it's health reasons or the time crunch that Shonen Jump plays on their mangaka. Hopefully things will pan out for chapter 253, but with no break next week, you can't help but wonder if things will dramatically be worse and there might be even a longer hiatus despite the actual volume release being cleaned up later on. Anyway, in regards to Yuta, we see him carried off by Rika crying while Ui uses his teleportation technique to carry him off to Shoko for healing. Now, despite Sukuna's curse output being incredibly low, things are looking pretty grim for Yuta. However, if Yuta were to go out, this would seem a little bit anticlimactic to see that there isn't really so much an emphasis on him and it just more so a retreat of Rika crying, hoping for the best. Now, the other instances we've seen characters cut in two, specifically with Yuki versus Kenjaku, how she was alive a little bit, and even Gojo smiling after she was slashed into two pieces. Will Yuta be the one that actually lives? I'm gonna go ahead and say yes, considering the earlier points mentioned, but more importantly, since it just immediately happened with Ui taking him back, and potentially to see him pull off a sneak attack for the future chapters, because Sukuna's way too overpowered, which we'll discuss later on, could be a nice treat for the audience members when things are looking dire. Anyway, the other person who got slashed, which no one really seemed to acknowledge that much, is Yuji. Yuji in this chapter says, well, I've been slashed 4 times. He tries to immediately get up, but he begins coughing blood, and when he gets upset on why he can't seem to push himself to help Maki and the other sorcerers, this is where now we see Choso give an explanation to Yuji, confirming that 1, he is alive, but gives more explanation on the visualization of RCT, and he tells Yuji that as long as he allows the blood to spread throughout every corner of his body like roots, visualize this outline of your body made with your veins. So anyway, this is all to say, I really appreciate the brotherly love that Choso's giving to Yuji even now, but you gotta love these little subtle moments with Yuji trying to push himself through, which personally speaking, I just find all the more admirable. Speaking of visualizing an outline to something, we find out with Maki piercing Sukuna straight to the heart from the narrator that once you're pierced from Maki's soul-splitting katana, the wound imparted by them cannot ordinarily be healed by the use of RCT. However, if one is aware of the outline of their own soul, then they can do it. It's revealed here that Sukuna is aware of the outline of his own soul because of course he's the antagonist, and oh, and here's another technique that we just didn't know about Sukuna until this precise moment. I mean, at this point, this meme has already gone too far, but I digress. But Sukuna is still having a hard time using RCT despite him knowing the outline of his soul because of the after effects of his battle with Satoru Gojo, and using RCT on the body as opposed to using RCT on the soul. It's just a whole completely different ball game. So how does Sukuna compensate for this? He uses his own curse energy to keep his blood pumping. And now let's actually go ahead and transition into Maki versus Sukuna round 2. There's many things that a lot of people are going to compliment Maki on, and also indirectly, even if there's a Toji agenda on who's stronger, at the end of the day, this is the closest thing we're gonna get to Toji versus Sukuna. So whatever Maki does impressively here, like toss Sukuna like a used rag mop, then let's go ahead and praise her for goodness sakes, you know, because this is something I absolutely love to see. Anyway, during their bout, Sukuna throws some debris into Maki and then attempts using the world cutting slash on her. At this point, we see a zoom in Maki's eyes with this heightened awareness where she dodges the attack, and Sukuna reveals that Maki can see the technique much better than all the other sorcerers, and even goes one step further into saying, just like his battle with Mahoraga in Shibuya, Maki can see what that divine beast could, which this is the part where Maki brings up the whole thing with the heart where he's using curse energy to pump it, and also finally get the reveal as if we really were curious to know about it, but here we go, now we do, that this is how Sukuna survived way back during the juvenile detention center when he took Yuji's heart apart and seemingly passed away. Now we transition things over to Uraume and Hikari, and it's really unfortunate that instead of actually seeing this bout go in any way interesting, it's just used as an exposition dump into the truth of Sukuna's strength, which we'll discuss in a bit. But Hikari shirtless, huffing and puffing. I don't know if I should be upset that Hikari isn't really doing that much against Uraume, or we should just be complimenting Uraume that this is why Sukuna holds him or her in high regards, right? Because we know how ridiculous ridiculously broken Hikari's jackpot domain is. And for Uraume to still be keeping up, well, kudos to him or her. Regardless, Hikari ends up revealing that he thought, looking at Sukuna's massive hulk of a body, that they were in deep shit, the sorcerers. But he tells Uraume that Sukuna's cursed energy is taking a real nosedive. And then, of course, he has to give that protagonist point where he's like, and this is now where the antagonists are gonna go away. Which, of course, Uraume insults Hikari and his jackpot technique and reveals Sukuna was holding back the entire time, and there's a huge wave of cursed energy that Sukuna hasn't revealed yet. Not only that, Uraume is upset that no one greater than Satoru Gojo could really keep Sukuna entertained, and that Sukuna has yet to go all out. Which I'm now very torn on this, because we see after the effects of Gojo, after the impressive feats we saw with Higuruma and Kashimo, well, not really Kashimo, but everyone giving it their all to still find out that the King of Curses hasn't gone all out. Look, we know he hasn't used this Fuga curse technique like he did in Shibuya against Jogo, but it would have been one thing if the technique was something that gets him out of a situation as opposed to him not really going all out. Now, there's a part of me that thinks Uraume is just purely glazing Sukuna in this moment because, well, he or she is just such a fanboy, but we've seen so many inner monologues from Sukuna himself where he acknowledges Yuji's will to never give up, challenges Sukuna's philosophical way of thinking, which really upsets him. Even though Higuruma didn't put much of a battle to Sukuna, he's impressed that some guy who didn't know anything about Jujutsu within, what, a span of 2 to 3 months, not only learned RCT, did domain amplification on par with Sukuna and Gojo. He is a name that Sukuna is never ever going to forget. Even the compliments that he said that these sorcerers have undergone in the past 30 days. So Sukuna definitely is using his strength. But now I wonder, and no one really used this analogy in all the other reviews I saw so far, I wonder if this is an instance similar to Dragon Ball Z when like Majin Vegeta fought Goku and Goku didn't transform into Super Saiyan 3. And I think throughout the battle, and excuse me, it's been some time since I saw Dragon Ball Z, but I think Goku was saying, if we're both Super Saiyan 2s, we're equally matched. Maybe Vegeta is a little bit stronger, but I digress. So Goku is huffing and puffing. He's giving it his all, but he always could have transformed into Super Saiyan 3. So to bring it back into Jujutsu Kaisen, is this one of those instances where maybe Sukuna hasn't gone all out, but he's clearly huffing and puffing. He's clearly acknowledging his adversary's strengths. And even if he has a huge wave of cursed energy he hasn't unveiled yet, it's going to be a bit unfortunate if Maki, who's so fresh into the battle, is the first one that ends up dying. But even more importantly, if Sukuna has this huge wave of curse energy and he hasn't truly gone all out, then you also have to acknowledge as readers, what is the huge spectacle that's going to happen for Sukuna to lose? Because if Sukuna hasn't gone all out, then what's the big defining moment that we're all going to celebrate when he ultimately does lose, if that? So I'm curious to know what you guys think in the comments down below about Sukuna trying versus not trying. And to see more Jujutsu Kaisen videos, you're going to want to click right here.